You just never know. Our birthdays are not far apart, or shall I say, I was born a year and a few days earlier, which doesn't really matter. Never did. The point is, whenever my birthday is approaching, I often think of Mark. We were classmates in college, 18 or 19-year-olds, and later we were roommates on 7th Street and co-workers at Dos Amigos, a Mexican restaurant near Cass and Lake Streets. It isn't there anymore, but we were Dos Amigos who worked at Dos Amigos. Last week I was in the kitchen looking at the calendar on the wall, mentioning to Jan that my old roommate Mark would be having a birthday right about now, but that I couldn't quite pinpoint the date. I wondered what he might be up to now, and thought, for some reason, that he may be still living in or near the town where we lived and worked and went to college in. So I went to the laptop on the kitchen table and typed in his name and the city, and up came an obituary. Damn it. I read the glowing account of the man in the obituary, which left no doubt that it was the same Mark I know, or had once known. Besides the familiar names and places mentioned, there was the description of an adventurous man who loved the great outdoors, who loved music, who was a loving husband, who was the friend who would stay up all night and listen to you when you needed it, who always left his door open. Yeah, that was Mark. He had passed away 4 years earlier, just past his 62nd birthday. Damn it. And the writer, I'm guessing his wife, may have meant it figuratively that he always left his door open, but I do recall that the apartment we lived in on 7th Street always had an open door, literally, or at least an unlocked door. None of us had a key to it, not Mark or I, or any of the third roommates who we tried from time to make monthly rent easier. But the third roommates never seemed to work out. Anyway, the door was always open. No one had a key. I worked the evening shift, and some nights I never knew who might be there when I walked in the door after midnight. One night I walked in, and sitting out in the kitchen was a stranger, alone, with a pint of Irish whiskey in front of him. He took a sip and said, "Hi, I'm a friend of Mark's. My name is Dolomite." "Dolomite?" I asked. "Yeah, Dolomite." "Okay, well, I'm Jack." And we sat and talked in the kitchen for a while when suddenly there were footsteps on the stairs, running up quickly. The door flew open and a young woman came running in. Well, we were all young then. And she ran into the living room and sees us out in the kitchen and says, "You gotta hide me," with desperation in her voice and a bicycle lock and chain held in one hand. Okay, she has my attention. So I ask what the story is and why the lock and chain. She says she was walking down the street when some guys in a pickup truck started harassing her. She says she took a swing and clocked one of the guys in the face with the lock, took off running, and came here because she heard it was cool to come here. "Really?" I said, sounding somewhat surprised. "Wow. Did these guys see you come in here?" She says, "No, I don't think so. But you gotta hide me. Can I crash here for the night?" I said, "Yeah, I guess. You can crash on the couch over there." "Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks," she says. Dolomite left with his pint of whiskey, and I would see him around town from time to time. But when I woke the next day and walked into the living room, the young woman was gone, and I never saw her again. One strange night. Somehow word got around that it was cool to hang out at our place. And one night I was sitting in my room quietly strumming guitar after work when I hear voices in the living room. I look out my bedroom door and there's four guys I've never seen before, sitting and talking like they own the place. I walk out and say, "Hey, what's up?" "Oh, we heard it was cool to hang out for a while." I said, "Yeah, well, you have to keep it down. My roommate's right in that room and he needs to get up and work a day shift." "Oh, yeah, cool. We'll keep it down." But then, not only did the talking start up again, but they all started singing the chorus to the song "Papa Was a Rolling Stone" and started play fighting, just horsing around. Nothing serious or violent, but noisy. So I went back into the living room and said, "Hey guys, you gotta keep it down." They ended up leaving, and I never saw any of them again. Another strange night. And there were a few strange nights. Anyway, I remember the place and the time I spent there. It was back in the middle of the 70s. Both Mark and I had hair below our shoulders, both played guitar, and had liberal politics, if any. We had no TV or telephone, and we were both okay with that. Music, reading, talk. We were both okay with that as entertainment. Mark worked the day shift at Dos Amigos, and I went in at 3 p.m. and got off at midnight. The owners, Dave and Claudia, were sweethearts to work for, like family. They wanted us to eat after we clocked in and again before we clocked out. So we pretty much lived on burritos, tostadas, tacos, and nachos. Life was good. I would use the payphone over on Union Street and was talking to my brother George, who said he could get me a job at a factory he was working in down in suburban Detroit. I said, "Nah, I don't want to work in a factory again." He told me what the pay would be. I said, "I'll be there Monday." And these were the days before the internet and email, before cell phone and texting, before social media, and there was no phone in the apartment. So after I left to go downstate to work my last factory job, Mark and I lost touch with one another. It was easier to lose touch back then, and time goes by, and life moves on, and you think, wow, it's been more than 40 years. I wonder what my old friend is up to now. And damn it, you find an obituary. And you also find some memories still tucked away on your back pages. I still recall those times with Mark and Becky, Jeff, Ted, Scott, Tom, Leslie, Dolomite, and others whose names I can't come up with right now. And I even remember some of the faces of those neither of us knew, who may appear through the open door of our apartment one night, disappear, and never be seen again. The door was always open, or at least unlocked. And sometimes life knocks you back a step with an unexpected moment, like trying to look up an old friend and finding an obituary. And what do you do with that? What can you do with that? Except to say, "Mark, you got ripped off, man. You got a few decades stolen from you, and the world's a lesser place without someone like you in it. Rest in peace, Mark. Rest in peace, old friend, and maybe find that key and lock that door once in a while, because you just never know, man. You just never know."